The silver and black are making headlines again, and there's a lot to unpack. Over the past 48 hours, ESPN's Adam Schefter dropped some major NFL news that could have real implications for the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's start with what matters most. Everything you need to know about the Raiders right now, from key updates over the weekend to Schefter's latest report, which includes some interesting takes on potential trades heading into the NFL draft. In one of his recent pieces, Schefter listed several players he believes could be traded during the draft. One name that stood out, Tyrie Wilson. Now, if you've been following closely, Wilson's name popping up in trade rumors isn't all that shocking. He's got 2 years left on his rookie deal, and he was the number 7th overall pick in 2023. There's still potential there, but the clock's ticking. Since entering the league, Wilson has had to adjust to multiple coaching staffs and different defensive schemes. But now, under defensive coordinator Patrick Graham and new defensive line coach Rob Leonard, it's go time. This is year 3. No more excuses. The Raiders have seen other defenders step up. Malcolm Kuntz, for example, has found his stride. Chandler Jones's absence and Wilson's own foot injury slowed him down early, but now it's about showing he belongs. If Las Vegas were to move on from Wilson, it wouldn't be about saving money. They'd actually take a $7.6 million cap hit, with $773,000 counting this year. So financially, it only makes sense if another team offers serious value. A 4th rounder might be the minimum worth considering. The Raiders have already re-signed Kuntz and Adam Butler, depth pieces that matter. Kuntz plays off the edge, Butler lines up inside, both positions where Wilson rotates. And here's something else to think about. The Raiders are very high on defensive tackle Jalen Walker. He's not necessarily a first-round target, but he's definitely on their radar. In fact, Walker could be in the top 5 of players Las Vegas might consider drafting. That kind of interest could say a lot about where the organization stands on Tyrie Wilson. Wilson's been working out in the Dallas area, but the team wants him more active in Las Vegas, more present, more locked in. It's a critical offseason for him. The talent's there, but if he doesn't step up soon, the team may decide to look elsewhere. And with the NFL draft right around the corner, don't be surprised if the Raiders make a few bold moves. The Raiders hold the 6th overall pick, and while they're not guaranteed to stay put, it's worth watching how the board falls, especially with names like Michael Williams, the explosive edge rusher from Georgia, gaining traction. If he somehow slips, it likely won't be far, and certainly not to pick number 37. But the fact that Vegas is linked to pass rushers like him might not bode well for Tyrie Wilson's long-term future with the team. So here's the big question. Should the Raiders trade or keep Tyrie Wilson? There are valid arguments on both sides. If you think the team should move on, it's worth asking what kind of return you'd expect. A 4th-round pick? Maybe less? But if you're in the keep camp, there's still some logic to that as well. Here's where I stand. Keep Tyrie Wilson. Why? Because unless a team steps up with a strong offer, and that's not guaranteed considering Wilson's underwhelming production, it doesn't make financial or strategic sense to move him. He's still a capable depth piece in the trenches, and with how much the Raiders value the defensive line, that matters. If Wilson does turn the corner and realizes his potential, this unit could become a nightmare for opposing quarterbacks. That's still a big if, but it's worth one more year to find out. Now, shifting back to Adam Schefter's reporting, he mentioned some intriguing draft risers, including Missouri offensive tackle Armand, often stylized as Armand Mew. Schefter now sees him as a near lock to go in the top 10, with the Raiders and Jets as possible landing spots at picks 6 and 7. And honestly, if I were making the call, I'd take Membou at 6. He's a dominant talent on the offensive line, with the skill set to anchor a front 5 for the next decade. He might even project as a long-term left tackle, though slotting him in at right tackle could be the smart play early on. But here's the twist. The Raiders haven't met with Membou. No combined meeting, no pro day, no official visit. For a franchise that puts serious weight on personal connections, that's a little surprising. Then again, maybe this is all part of the draft day chess match. If Vegas is open to trading back, leaking interest in a top tackle might entice a quarterback-hungry team to move up. And this year's draft has more uncertainty at quarterback than usual. Those players could slide, and that's when the phones start ringing. There's also buzz around linebacker Ashton Jeanty. Schefter reports that the Bears are extremely interested in him and could consider trading up to number. 5 to snag him before the Raiders pick. That's notable, especially if Las Vegas is targeting him too. So if the Raiders really want jeanty, could they be floating interest in someone like Membou to misdirect? It's possible. And here's another nugget from Schefter. While several teams are exploring trade-back scenarios, he hasn't heard that the Raiders are one of them. That suggests they may be planning to stay put, unless the right deal comes their way. Ashton jeanty might have tipped his hand. He was asked when he expects to be drafted and said the earliest he sees himself going is pick number 6 to the Raiders. That doesn't mean he only wants to land in Las Vegas, but it does suggest something. If jeanty's on the board and the Raiders want him, they'll get their shot. That said, he might not be the favorite anymore. Right now, there are 3 players I'd feel confident betting on as the Raiders' top targets at 6. Jeanty's still in that mix, but his grip on the top spot may be slipping. Let's pivot to the quarterback conversation. This one involves Alabama's Jalen Milroe. According to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, the Raiders are showing real interest in Milroe, something that shouldn't catch fans off guard. I've said it before. There's a better chance Las Vegas drafts Milroe than Shedeur Sanders. And while some push back on that, it's not a hot take. The interest in Milroe has been building for months. He's athletic, dynamic, and reportedly interviewed well. Combine that with the Raiders' prior interest in Joe Milton, and there's a clear pattern emerging. The front office is eyeing a quarterback with raw tools, mobility, and long-term upside. Let's be clear, Aidan O'Connell is a better quarterback today than either Milroe or Milton. But does he have the ceiling those two offer? Probably not. And if the plan is to start Geno Smith for the next 2 to 3 seasons, why not draft a project like Milroe? Someone you can mold behind a veteran and develop under Chip Kelly's system. That's what makes this situation intriguing. Milroe is the kind of talent who could thrive in a creative offense. And Chip Kelly has a track record of building systems around his quarterback's strengths, something Milroe would need, especially after losing the structured environment that Nick Saban provided at Alabama. There's another layer to this: program continuity. The Raiders seem to value players who stayed in one college system, who weren't constant transfers. It's a trait you hear coaches like Tom Brady and John Spytek reference often, a sign of maturity, consistency, and coachability. Milroe fits that mold. He stuck it out at Alabama. He's raw, sure, but the upside is real. Some believe the Raiders could target him as early as round 2, though I think day 3 is more realistic. There's expected to be a run on other positions early on, which could push quarterbacks like Milroe down the board. Still, the quarterback class after the top tier is a toss-up. Some believe Tyler Show could be QB2. Others say Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, or even Shedeur Sanders. The opinions vary, and so might the Raiders board. But one thing's clear, Vegas is doing their homework. And if they're looking for a dynamic athlete to develop behind Geno, Milroe's name won't be far from the conversation. Let's be honest, the Raiders have too many pressing needs to spend a second-round pick on a quarterback who won't see the field for 2 or 3 years. And while Jalen Milroe is intriguing, he's a project. He's not the guy you reach for in round 2, not with holes still scattered across this roster. Now, let's pivot to something practical: the undrafted free agent UDFA landscape. After the draft wraps up, the work doesn't stop. As of right now, the Raiders have 70 players on the roster. That's 20 short of the league's 90-man offseason limit. But here's the twist. David Agoha is part of the International Pathway Program, which allows the Raiders to carry 91 players. Not just 90. They're slated to make 9 picks in the draft. Do the math. 70 players plus 9 draft picks equals 79. 91 minus 79 equals 12 UDFA spots up for grabs. So after the final pick is made, keep your eyes peeled. The UDFA class will be big, and some of those players will compete for a real shot in Vegas. Now let's zoom back out to the broader NFL draft picture, because what happens across the league always ripples back to the Raiders. There's a lot flying around the league, and Adam Schefter is at the center of it. One of the latest updates? The Tennessee Titans are keeping the number. First overall pick. No trade, no movement. Who are they taking? All signs point to Cam Ward. That's right. The Washington State quarterback appears to be the name rising to the top of draft boards. And while that move won't directly impact the Raiders' pick at number 6, it could trigger a cascade, one that shifts how quarterbacks fall and which players might slide to Las Vegas. As the picture becomes clearer, so does the Raiders' path. And whatever it is, a blue-chip tackle, a defensive playmaker, or a quarterback in waiting. The moves made ahead of them will shape the silver and black's future. In the unpredictable world of the NFL draft, few prospects have stirred more debate than Shedeur Sanders. Mention his name, and you'll hear cheers, jeers, and everything in between. Let's clear the air first. This isn't about dislike. Quite the opposite. There's a part of every Raiders fan and every content creator that would love to see Sanders in silver and black. Shedeur means star power. He brings eyeballs, he brings business. But let's not confuse headlines with readiness. This is a quarterback who won't start for 2 or 3 years, and that matters, especially for a team like the Raiders that already has Geno Smith and a depth chart that needs more than a splashy name. Now here's where it gets complicated. Shedeur's ceiling? Think Geno Smith, a smart, composed quarterback who can lead an offense but won't wow you with freakish athleticism. And if you already have Geno, how does that puzzle piece fit? Still, he's one of the most complex evaluations in this class. Why? Because he's got it upstairs. Football IQ, poise, leadership, intangibles that make scouts and coaches lean in. But those don't always guarantee first-round value, especially when the measurables and athletic traits don't jump off the tape. Adam Schefter recently dropped some insight. There's a real chance Sanders falls out of round 1. The Browns, Giants, Saints, and Steelers have all shown some level of interest, but no mention of the Raiders, and that silence speaks volumes. Would Vegas take Shedeur at number ARA? Not a chance. Could they look at him at pick 37 in the second round? Maybe. But even that feels like a stretch. At this point, the quarterback order behind Cam Ward, the likely number one quarterback, is wide open. You'll hear names like Tyler Show, Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, and yes, Shedeur. But it's all projection. It's all preference. One more wrinkle that's impossible to ignore. Deion Sanders, the father, the brand, the shadow. One executive recently told me, if you're a head coach and you draft Shedeur, you better have job security. Because if things go south, if the team struggles, the speculation will start. And Deion's name will be right in the middle of it. It's not just about drafting a quarterback. It's about drafting a media storm, a family, a legacy. And while that doesn't mean Shedeur can't be successful, it does mean teams will tread carefully. And if Tom Brady, a mentor to Sanders since 2020, doesn't advocate for him at number 6, maybe that's all the insight the Raiders need. As much as the NFL draft is about numbers, boards, and measurables, it's also about narratives. And few stories are larger than Deion Sanders. Not just as a father, not just as a coach, but as a presence. He's building something special in Colorado, a cultural shift, a movement. And I hope he stays there, because what Deion is doing for college football isn't just bold, it's beautiful. But when you talk about his son, Shedeur Sanders, the conversation changes. Teams drafting in the top 10 do so for one reason. They weren't good last season. And when a team is already under pressure to perform, adding Shedeur means adding primetime pressure. Because if things go wrong, the speculation begins. And no head coach wants to look over his shoulder and see Deion Sanders waiting in the wings. So the question becomes, will Shedeur Sanders be drafted in the top 16 picks? Some say yes, others say absolutely not. Here's my answer: no. The buzz right now? Teams like the Saints are starting to favor Jackson Dart over Sanders. And when you understand the scheme fit, it starts to make sense. I believe Shedeur ends up going later, maybe in the 20s, or even slips into the second round. And that's not an insult. That's just value. This is the NFL draft. Things change in an instant. But the trend lines? They're real. Adam Schefter also dropped a few intriguing nuggets that could directly impact the Raiders. One of them? Linebacker Carson Swissinger, the hard-hitting, instinctual defender from UCLA, may sneak into round 1. I landed him in the 3rd round in a recent mock draft and danced all the way home. But if Swissinger does go early, it could trigger a mini run at linebacker. Now to a name that Raiders fans should circle in ink: Jalen Jet Barons. If the Raiders trade back, maybe to picks 11, 12, or 13, Barron becomes a real target. A nickel corner who doubles as a safety, Barron fills 2 urgent needs. Because let's be honest, while Isaiah Pola-Mao and Jeremy Chin bring intrigue, the Raiders still lack a true center field free safety. Barron's versatility could be exactly what this secondary needs. And there's more. Schefter hinted that wide receiver will have a strong day 2 presence. Expect a flurry in rounds 2 and 3, including names like Jaden Higgins, the standout from Iowa State. The Raiders need help at wide receiver, and if they hold tight or move around, don't be surprised if Higgins or another second-tier star hears his name called in silver and black. The smoke is thick. The signals are mixed. But the message is clear. The Raiders are looking for value, not just headlines. And sometimes, the smartest pick is the one nobody sees coming. Jalen is one of several wide receivers expected to go on day 2 of the NFL draft. Others in that range include Kyle Williams from Washington State and the TCU duo Jack Beck and Savion Williams. Last year, we saw an early run on day 2 receivers. Keon Coleman went 33rd to Buffalo, and Ladd McConkey landed with the Chargers at 34. A similar trend is expected this year, and it makes sense. The free agent receiver class was underwhelming, and there's a clear drop-off in talent between players expected to go in rounds 1 and 2 versus day 3 prospects. That gap makes day 2 wideouts even more valuable, especially for teams looking to add firepower without spending a first-round pick. For example, the Raiders are likely still in the mix for a veteran like Tyler Lockett or Keenan Allen, thanks to front office connections, but they'll still need to draft at least one wide receiver. Trading back might also be an option, given the number of roster holes they need to address. Several teams could be active in trades this year. The Eagles and Texans are regular movers and could be aggressive again. Meanwhile, the Steelers at pick 21 are reportedly open to trading down. Other teams to watch include the Jaguars, 5, Panthers, 8, 49ers, 11, Falcons, 15, Seahawks, 18, Buccaneers, 19, and Vikings, 24. All are potential candidates to trade back in round 1. That's the latest NFL draft buzz as things continue heating up. With a wave of movement expected, this year's draft could be one of the most unpredictable yet.